Hello and welcome back to Jack's FSX videos and Happy New Year. This is the first video of 2017. Today I'm going to be doing a complete tutorial and complete walkthrough of IFR and VFR for using air traffic control or ATC. Okay, so I'm going to be showing you how to use the ATC using VFR and using IFR. Basically, VFR is using a flight visually, and IFR is using the instruments. So you've set up a flight plan either in the GPS or in the main FSX interface before you launch the game. Also, just like to say that I am doing a voiceover on this, so sorry if things don't quite line up or anything, because the original file when I was doing real-time voiceover didn't record. So, basics about ATC first is obviously it stands for air traffic control, as I've already mentioned. And then to get it up, to display the ATC menu, you can either press, hold down Alt for a couple seconds, go into Views and then ATC, or you can just press the scroll lock key if that's set up on your settings in the control section. So that's what usually I do. I just hit scroll lock and then that works fine. So wherever you are in the world, you'll have two options like this if you're on VFR. So you've got the first one, Tune Gatwick Ground, and Tune Gatwick ATIS. So I'll get to those in a second. But if you want to add realism to FSX, to what pilots will actually do, you can bring up this panel here that I'm just showing with my mouse, which is the radio stack by pressing Shift 2. And you only really need to use the top one, COM 1 or Communications 1. And you use the standby side to put it in, and then you flick the switch in a second to go to activate, which I'll talk about in a second. So back to these options. First one, Gatwick Ground, is basically everything that's obviously happening on the ground, so things like taxiing and things like other traffic moving around when they tell you to stop. And then ATIS or ATIS is your weather, basically. It just gives you a full weather report on the conditions around Gatwick, things like wind and visibility. So you enter those numbers there, 136.525 for example, into the radio stack here. So you obviously use the standby side, so you just obviously press the plus until it goes all the way up, but obviously I won't bore you by showing you this. So obviously here now we have got it at 136.525, and that's pretty much it. You're tuned in. Well, you're not right tuned in. That's pretty much it. In that, all you got to do is just flick the switch and then that's it. So that's it standing by is what I'm trying to say. So you don't need to do anything necessarily unless you want to talk to them right now. You just flick that switch like I said. And then you've got obviously your information at the top there, like I was saying, wind, calm, visibility greater than 20 miles, all that, blah, blah, blah. So that's basically how you use the radio stack, but I'm not going to use it for this video because it will just take way too long. Even I actually just use the options here. So you're left with one now that you've used ATIS, but you can always use it again later if you want to. So you're going to click Tune Gatwick Ground, or you do 121.8 into your radio stack if that's what you're wanting to do, and then that will tune you into, obviously, like I said, taxiing, getting a pushback, getting over to the runway when they tell you to stop and things like that. So that's obviously really useful well, it's not useful, it's necessary really to get over to the runway, otherwise it's just not going to work out at all. So then we're going to tune Gatwick Ground, or you can type that in like I said, and then you're given a bunch of options here depending on what you want to do. So that, by the way, that green bar will go away at the top. So when you click one of these, you're then going to be speaking to the tower. Depending on what you want to do, except for the top one, obviously it's the same thing. So top one, like I said, same thing, weather, so you don't really need that again. But then you've got all these options here, which is requesting taxi depending on what way you're going to depart out the airport, like depart north, south, west, east, and all that. So, and then at the bottom you've got taxi, fueling and parking. If you click that, you don't really need it, but it's request taxi to gates and parking, obviously. So like I say, you don't need that because we're already at a gate. So you then click one of these options, for example, departing straight out. Then this is basically you, the pilot, speaking to the tower, Gatwick Ground, Boeing, whatever, request taxi. and then they'll send you something back saying go to runway 8 left using those taxiways, and then contact the tower when you're at the runway and ready for takeoff. So you then got another bunch of options here. You can acknowledge it, you can say it again, ask them to say it again, and you can turn on progressive taxi or select another runway for takeoff. So obviously most of the time you're just going to click the top one, but you also will need, if you're a beginner, turn on progressive taxi, as obviously you won't know where you're going if you haven't got any charts. You will need charts if you don't want to use progressive taxi, which is basically just putting arrows on the taxiway to show you exactly where to go. So at this point this is the point that you would then start moving over, get pushed back, and go over to the runway. You still got the tower option there, but that's not any use to you right now. Obviously there's no other options there apart from weather. So we're just going to go back to ground, and because that's where you're going to get your option to request clearance for takeoff once you're at the runway. It doesn't appear unless you're at the runway. So we're going to go back to that. Like I said, we've got progressive taxi, so we're going to turn that on. So we've got the line so we know where to go. Like I said, you need charts if you don't know, if you don't want to use that and you want more realism. So there they are there, going up to the runway, 8 left I think it was, yeah, 8 left. And then that's all you need to do, pretty much. You just follow those lines. There's nothing else that you can really do in the meantime, because like I said, you click tower here, and then it tells you that you obviously there's no options there, and that's, you can't use that. You've still got the weather, and then you've just got turn progressive on and off. So yeah, that's pretty much all you need to do and go over. And like I was saying, if you want that realism, you can download charts off the internet. Some you have to pay for, some are free, but you can download charts of the apron and the aerodrome, and you can like figure out for yourself where it says like go on taxiway Alpha November Juliet Romeo. You just follow those round and pretty much head over to the runway. Okay, so as you're nearing the runway, you'll get this option here once you're tuning into tower, which I forgot to mention. So once you get near the runway, you can tune into tower, and then you've got this option here, request takeoff clearance VFR from Gatwick Tower. So you can usually use this, if there's no aircraft in front of you, you can use that as you're going up to the runway. So that means you won't even have to stop on the runway or stop near the runway. You can just go straight on smoothly, and that's what pilots will do if there's no aircraft in front of them. If there is aircraft in front of them and you're going forward bit by bit, you don't click that button until you are at the front of the line and the aircraft in front of you is now just taking off. So you don't do that until you're at the front of the line. So obviously I've been cleared for takeoff, so that means I don't need to stop at this line here, which is obviously what you would do if you hadn't been given clearance for takeoff. You stop at this line just here, but obviously I have, so I'm going to carry on straight forward. You make sure your flaps are out, which should have been done at the gate. So I'm just stopped at this line just to show you this is where you would stop, and just make sure that you turn on all your lighting, etc., and that's pretty much you good to go for takeoff. Alright then, once you're getting into the air, you'll immediately get two options, one for request touch and go and one for request full start landing. That is simply because you're still tuned into Gatwick Tower, and Gatwick Tower is what you'll be tuned in once you're on your final approach to the airport. So that's sort of what the game thinks you're doing. It now thinks you're approaching Gatwick, so it's saying do you want to touch and go or do you want to have a full stop landing. Obviously we don't want either, so we ignore that until new options come up. This is basically where you just leave it now. You leave ATC for pretty much the rest of the flight because you're on a VFR. You go your own way, you go whichever direction you want towards whatever airport you want. But there are options there. So Tune Gatwick Approach is the one that's there at the top. That's because that's what you're nearest. So that's if you want to then go ahead and land back at Gatwick, you would then do that by clicking obviously option number 1 there. But you've also got some other options here in the nearest airport list, so all the airports that are near you. So for example, I was going to land at Heathrow, I would click that, and then Tower, and then request a full start landing or touch and go, depending on which one obviously I want to do. You still got the weather there as well. So you've got all those airports there. So obviously now it's changed, it's now Biggin Approach, because I'm now closer to Biggin than I am Gatwick. So it's just saying, do you want to land at Biggin? If you do, you tune into their approach on there. And then that's pretty much it. Like I said, VFR is pretty straightforward in that you just fly wherever you want to go. So if I was going to land at Heathrow, you would click that roundabout now, if not sooner. You do it as soon as it comes up on the list. So if I click the airport's farther from you, don't know why it didn't work there. But you've then got more options here, and you just click it as soon as you're available to, as soon as you can get close enough to the airport. Okay, so I'm now coming into land at Gatwick, and you just saw I selected them from the nearest airport list, then tuning to their tower, and then you request your full stop landing or touch and go. I'm obviously not going to land here. So once you've done that, it sends it off as usual. They come back to you saying enter left traffic runway 8 right, which is actually the other side of the airport, but that doesn't matter. Like I said, we're not landing. So you then acknowledge the entry instructions, or you can select another runway for landing, which will usually just be 8 left or something, whatever's next to it. If there aren't any, then it won't come up with any options. So once you acknowledge your pattern entry instructions, you've still got more options. You've still got weather. You can change to a touch and go. If you're lost, you can request airport directions. So it just says you're unfamiliar with the area, and then they'll come back to you once he's finished speaking. There we go. Airport is 6 o'clock, 2 miles. And so that just might help you find the airport if you're not using the GPS. So now that I'm so close, it's actually said that I'm cleared to land, because it doesn't actually matter which way you're facing. It's just if you're close to the runway and there's no other aircraft in front of you. So then I'll just say clear to land, and then that's it. So we're now just landing here at Gatwick. So I've just touched down. As soon as you do that, you see that now it says tune Gatwick ground. So I was on tower. It's now telling me to tune the ground, and you do that pretty much as soon as possible so you know where you're going. So request taxi to gates or parking. Because this is a commercial aircraft, obviously I'm going to do gates, but most VFR flights obviously will be on a smaller aircraft, like a 2-seater or 4-seater plane, for example, so in which you do parking. So I'm just doing this very tight turn here, and then it says there we go, taxi gate 104 via taxiway Echo, runway 8 left, Tango Juliet Quebec. So you just acknowledge that taxi clearance, and then that's pretty much it. You just head over, and same as usual, you can turn on the progressive taxis, pretty much the same conditions as it was when we were going over to the runway. So once you're at the gate, you then suddenly get some more options here. You can turn off the progressive taxi, same as before, and then you've pretty much got the same as when we were at the beginning of the video. Nothing really is different here. You've got taxi for takeoff, so if I was to click that, you get the full list again. So I'm just going to turn that off there. But if I click on taxi for takeoff, any second there we go. You've got all those options again, and then you've got taxi to parking and fueling, same as before. Nothing's changed, and that's it for VFR. So if you want to learn how to use ATC for IFR, just keep watching this video. Right then, so for IFR, things are quite a bit different. Not so much on the ground, but more in the air, and especially when you're landing. That's where it gets really different. So you've got the same options here as before, ground or ATIS. So we've still got the ATIS in the, even if you tune ground. So we need to request IFR clearance. This is the first difference you're going to notice. So obviously you can set up an IFR in the main interface or using GPS. So once you request your IFR, obviously that will send off. I'm doing it to de Gaulle, I think that's how you say it, in Paris. Biggest airport in Paris, I think it is. So it tells you immediately what you need to do. Fly runway heading, climb and maintain 11,000. So you need to input this into your autopilot. I have got a how to use autopilot video. And once you do that, you're pretty much set for the ground for requesting your IFR. So you just acknowledge that. So once again, fly runway heading, climb and maintain 11,000. So we'll just wait for that to finish saying that, because obviously these things do take a little while. Right, there we go, read back correct, contact ground 121.8. So you can still use the radio step for this if you want to. So like I said, that's you set for requesting the IFR. Now you need to request the taxi IFR. So this is now requesting permission to go over to the runway. So once again, we'll just wait for that to say that. So now it's saying hold short 8 left. So now we know our heading 808 or whatever it is. Sometimes they're slightly off, like 081 or 082. So we acknowledge that. We can say it again, and obviously we need to turn off progressive taxi, and then that's it. We just acknowledge that. So then, once again, as you're getting close, I should have actually already been tuning on the tower there. Once you get close, you then got the option. You've then got the option again to tune, to request clearance for takeoff. Sorry. So same thing as before. Try and do that if you're getting up close to the runway and there's nothing in front of you. So they've just cleared me for takeoff. So then I can turn on all my lights here, make sure my flaps are out, etc., and then just acknowledge clearance for takeoff. Right then, once we're in the air, nothing will come up for a little while, but this is basically where you'll be turning on your autopilot, so I probably will overspeed in a second, and turn on your, obviously, speed autopilot as well, and where you then start turning which way you want to go, even though you haven't tuned into anyone, but it's because they already know your IFR. So, they've now told me to contact Gatwick departure. Obviously this didn't happen for VFR, so we just acknowledge that, acknowledge the handover, and then we tune into them. And then a lot of people have asked me, why does it tell me to tune and then contact? Isn't it the same thing? It's not. Tuning is just basically literally turning your dials to tune into that frequency on the radio stack, and all that you're doing is pressing tune there is just actually automatically tuning it in, rather than doing what we did at the beginning by tuning it in with the radio stack. And then contacting them is obviously just speaking to them. So it just tells us what we're doing, going up to 11,000, so they've told me turn right heading 155, resume own navigation. That's because I didn't already turn on my own navigation by doing the VOR switch and the autopilot switch and the GPS switch there. If I was obviously already doing that, they would just say, okay, just climb and maintain 11,000 basically. So they told me to resume my navigation afterwards, after I turn heading 185. So we're obviously just going to do that. We're going to go right and do that. So you obviously do that earlier, basically, was what I was trying to say there. And then just acknowledge that, and you're pretty much all good for the flight then. The autopilot will then just turn left or right when necessary, and then you'll eventually be told to descend, which we'll show you in a minute. So other options that you still got is you've got selecting your IFR destination, request cruising altitude increase, and altitude decrease. So the number 2 and 3 are pretty obvious, and you've also got number 4 there. If you want to just cancel it and go to VFR, which is what we were doing at the beginning, then you still got that option there. But the first one we'll start with is select new IFR destination. So it's still possible, even though obviously it's a commercial flight and it would never happen in real life, but it's still possible that you can change your IFR destination. So you can click that there, and it'll go back to this sort of menu here, and you just put in what you want, etc. Then you've got cruising altitude increase, so increase it by 1,000. So I think I'm going to 25,000 today, so I can increase it by 1,000 to 26, or by 10,000 to 35. Same for decrease. Right then, so once you're starting to come in closer to the airport, you get something like this come on. So I've got mine setting for Heathrow now. So you get something like this. You're at 17 miles northwest, turn right heading 280, climb and maintain 3,000. Yours will obviously say descend and maintain, since I'm not at 3,000 yet. So expect vectors, visual, runway 8 left. So we're not doing an ILS, obviously, as it's told me. We're doing a visual, but I'll show you how to do an ILS anyway. So it tells you turn right heading 310, climb and maintain 3,000, like I said. So we're going to do that and make sure we line up the runway. So this is obviously just us. This is obviously just the ATC trying to get us to line up, because if you look on the map just down there in the bottom centre, you'll see EGKK. That's the airport we're landing at, and we're pretty much heading straight for like the middle of the runway, if you know what I mean. We're not coming in obviously in the right direction. So you need to obviously line up with it, and that's exactly what ATC does for you on an IFR. And the last one, it lined up with us as well, but the difference on this one is that it will line up and then you like switch over to ILS if you want. Obviously in this case we're not. We're still doing a visual. So that's just there showing a close up there, and then that's pretty much all you need to do. You just follow these instructions constantly. They'll just take you right round in a bend in this situation. Sometimes you're just coming straight in automatically. Well, not automatically, but you just happen to be. It just depends which way your flight plan is and which way the runways are facing. depending on obviously which way you're going to be going. So as you like go along and you're at such a low altitude, you'll be told to switch over to different approaches. What's just showing on the GPS here is that you can select an approach. You can learn how to do this in my how to use GPS video, but you can just select an approach there, so ILS or 8 right or ILS 26 left, for example there. NDB is another one, I don't actually know what that one is. So ILS is your instrument landing system, but we've been told visual, as I was just showing there on the ATC, so we can't use an ILS because we're, like I said, we're doing visual. But you could still do it anyway, even if it said visual and there was an ILS one there, just to help you line up with the runway basically. So just follow those instructions, and then once you're getting closer, like I am here, so it said descend and maintain 2200. So as you can see, I'm almost lined up with it. Just got to do a bit of a left in a second. And we're just entering their airspace there, so they'll tell me to switch over soon. Actually, it might be the one in the middle. I can't remember which way around it is, departure and approach. So airport is at your 10 o'clock, 12 miles, turn left heading 080, report runway in sight. So it wouldn't say report runway in sight if you're doing an ILS one. It's only because we're doing a visual landing, because 8 left doesn't have ILS, only 8 right does at Gatwick. In fact, 8 left is actually a taxiway now, they don't even use it for a runway. So we report the runway in sight as we're getting closer, but you've also got some other options here, so you can still select a new IFR destination if you wanted to. You can select another runway for landing, that will usually just be the one that's next to it, so 8 right, we're landing 8 left, 8 right's next to it, so yeah, there you go, 8 right. And then you've got selecting another approach, so that would be like coming in ILS or coming in at runway 26, so there you go, you've got some other ones there. So we could do ILS 8 right at this point, but we're not going to. So we've just been told to tune over to Gatwick approach now. So we click on that once we've been told to, and then we contact them because they're going to do the final guide down to the runway and make sure that we're lined up. So at this point, once you're getting closer, they would also tell you to intercept the ILS if we were doing an ILS landing, and then once you intercept it, you then do that. I have got a video on how to use ILS. Right, so we now said that we've got the runway in sight, and once we say that, they then come back to you saying your final sort of information before they hand you over to Gatwick Tower. So we're going to acknowledge our approach clearance, and we're going to tune into their tower and contact them. So we've got our final instructions there to go to 2200, so I was obviously a little bit too low. I'm not going to land at this runway either, by the way. So we contact them, bring our gears down, make sure that's down. Flaps should already be down, but like I said, not really landing here. And then we just continue to descend, same as a normal approach really, because this is visual. Obviously they've not told us to do ILS, like I said. And then that's it, there we go. Patting entry instructions, acknowledged, and now they're giving us landing clearance as well. Because obviously we're so close and there's no aircraft in front of us, so we've been cleared to land. And then you get these final 3 options before you touch down. First one is still the weather if you need it, so if you need to adjust your which direction you're going or whatever. You've got declared missed approach, maybe if you've gone over it or you're too far to the left or right, they'll guide you back round to land again. And you've got request airport direction, ignore that in the background. You've got request airport direction, so obviously it'll be 12 o'clock, like 1 mile or something. So that's it for this video. So thank you very much for watching. I hope this helped you learn how to use Use ATC using VFR and IFR methods. And if it was useful, please remember to leave a like and subscribe if you're new to this channel. Loads of great tutorials and other entertainment videos. And finally, please subscribe to Tectonic, my multi-gaming channel. I'm going to be switching over to there permanently this year, so please remember to do that. Link is in the top right, and thank you for watching.